Hello, my friends, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Realm News. Episode 76 to be precise. Gosh, I can remember episode 1, The Cleric's Cloak, which up until recently was the most popular episode, and I think that's only because it was the very first one, so people naturally gravitate to the first episode. And you just have to know that was my very first episode ever doing a podcast. So please just pardon all the faux pas in my speech and my very first script. Just give me a little leeway there. Hopefully you think I've improved since then, more than a year later. I mean, gosh, time's just flying by. But for those who don't know who I am your host, the Dark Lord, the one who puts the real in realm and expands your mind one block at a time. I know that I always say this, but today we have a great episode in store for you. I have decided to do a series on light in no real order because I'm going to have guests coming on the show, so it'll probably be a guest here and there, but I'm going to start this off with the most primitive way possible. With fire, of course, but we are not talking about fire in general. No, we are going to specifically look into the Campfire and Flint and Steel in today's episode. They go hand in hand, or so I figure. I realize that there are several methods to starting a fire, more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak. I grew up in the country, and learning to build a fire was common know-how. It is how we start our fireplaces, campfires, barbecues, bonfires, and we even have a designated time of the year in spring here in Kansas, the state I live in, where we burn our pastures to help with crop production. It is a beneficial skill to have in the real world. A campfire in Minecraft is also very beneficial as well and has multiple purposes in the game. Today, I would like to take you on a journey that takes place a long time ago in our human history, somewhere around 2 million years ago, where we first discovered fire. I will then tell you a few ways we have used fire and some of the technology that we developed to help us ignite material to create it, such as the Flint and Steel. That is all in the real segment of the show, which will take place right after poll time. After the real segment, we will then transcend over to the realm, where we will examine the history of the campfire in Minecraft and its uses. We will do the same for the Flint and Steel, because the Flint and Steel can be used to manually start a campfire. The two items just go naturally together. I will cover its history and use in the game as well. We have a full episode that is full of interesting facts. When you are ready, let's go check out what's going on at poll time. It's poll time! Welcome back to a new poll time, my friends, where we hear a new poll I put out to the Minecraft community. I will also read off some comments made by a few people left on this week's poll. The question that I posed towards the Minecraft Reddit community was this. Hello, friends. I have another poll for you this week. Do you build with obsidian? What I mean by that question is that do you use it for its aesthetic value in building shelters or other structures in your world? If so, what do you do with it? It is an incredibly durable block that is blast resistant, but conversely, it takes time to break it and can be a bit laborious. Tell me how you use it, and I am leaving portals out of it. So no portals. What creative way do you use obsidian in Minecraft? And that's the end of that quote of my question that I posed. Yes, I was interested in its other uses and not for the obvious portal use. Before I go on with the results and comments, allow me to tell you how I have used obsidian in my world. I must say that I prefer weeping obsidian over plain obsidian, but I have used it in a couple of locations. The most prominent one is in my capital city called Seatown. There I had built a new quarter or a new district in Seatown. It has no name, but I built it back around the release of Tricky Trials last year. I put down a nice house out there, a dripstone lava facility, and a very uniquely designed enchantment room that is composed of nether brick, stained glass panes, and an obsidian entryway. It looks really great. I like how the maroon color of the netherrack goes well with the cold, dark, purplish obsidian. Another place that I have obsidian is in Lord's Landing of Lemnos. It is my personal reflection room that serves as an attaché to my personal chamber. The room is composed of many precious blocks, or precious to me at least. Polished diorite floors with chiseled quartz blocks surround the lectern holding the sacred shadow codex that is positioned in front of a solid gold block. The ceiling and support columns are all polished granite with massive orange and red stained glass windows on 3 of the 4 walls with the national idol front and center. One wall is nether brick and with red and orange candles lit, dripping wax on top of the nether brick. The candles are under magma blocks that glow a warm orange. Opposite of that is a stunning wall made with chiseled nether brick block that at the base and top. But in between are magma cubes, weeping obsidian, and regular obsidian blocks. I really enjoy how all the colors intermingle around the scaly, coal-colored obsidian. It is great for serious-looking structures, in my opinion, such as my religious rooms around my realm. Those are the 2 places that I have used obsidian as part of a design. Let's move on to the results now, shall we? This week brought in 50 votes even. That's an exciting turnout. Thank you to everyone who participated in this poll, whether that be by voting or by leaving a comment. Ideally, do both of these. Vote and leave a comment, please. I provided 2 options for this poll. 1, yes, I build with obsidian. 2, no, I don't build with obsidian. Pretty straightforward, right? Let's start with the loser. The loser this week was, yes, I build with obsidian group, which was my vote, because I just told you the 2 structures I used obsidian with. We only received a total of 20 votes this group, which isn't horrible. That comes out to be 40% of the total votes. I could have guessed, though, that this would have lost. Creating this block with lava and water is easy to do, but mining it is the problem. First off, you have to use a diamond pickaxe for it to even drop. Secondly, even with a diamond pickaxe, it takes forever to break an obsidian block. There's a reason why they are considered to be extremely durable. I think people choose to use this block to build with for the same reason that I did. It makes for a great decorative block. Perhaps some people use this for its high durability and blast resistance, strictly for that. I believe that I have heard of people on SMPs, or survival multiplayers, servers out there, build their own secret chest rooms out of obsidian to better protect their most precious items. Maybe players use this as a blast shield from creepers as well. I would like to now shift over to the winner, who you know by now is the quote-unquote no I don't build with obsidian group. As I stated a moment ago, this is a very expensive block to mine when it comes to damaging your diamond pickaxe and eating up your valuable time. I think this is why people don't build with it. Actually, let's hear from the people. I have 2 comments to read to you. Let me start with a comment from apprehensive_hat8986, who is a veteran commenter to Realm News. They say, quote, yes, but not very often. Unfortunately, like mini blocks, it has only the single form to work with, and this strongly limits the utility. Aesthetically, it's a fairly limiting block, and it has plenty of competition from other black blocks, stone, wool, concrete / powder. Obsidian is also useful for limestone contraptions since it's an immovable block. But aesthetics can play a role here as well. And there are several other immovable blocks, especially in Java, for better or for worse, end quote. They're correct in stating that it only has a single form to work with. The obsidian block is obsidian block, and that is what you get. You cannot polish it nor chisel it. It's unalterable. I personally think that we should be able to polish them into polished blocks, such as what we can do with granite and diorite as examples. I think we should also be able to polish it and then craft it into mirrors like people in prehistory did in real life. I did an episode in over the Stone Age. I recommend going to check that out. And I cover, I can't remember the name of that town, but it was over, I can't remember where. I believe in now what's considered modern day Turkey, but a very prehistoric town during the Stone Age. They dug up some obsidian that was polished so well that you could see your own reflection. In fact, one of the articles I have, I believe, linked to that episode, has an archaeologist holding it up with the reflection in it. So it did work. And I think that would just be neat if we could polish this stuff into mirrors, couldn't you? I mean, wouldn't that be pretty awesome if you could see yourself in armor in your castle or whatever, in your bedroom? I think that'd be pretty neat. That's just me. That's just my opinion. They make another great point by saying that I'm going back to the comment here, folks, but they make another great point by saying that it is very similar to other black blocks like stone, wool, and concrete powder mix. But Apprehensive's third point made is that it is used to make some crazy contraptions. I would have to look further into that myself to see what that all entails. I think you can make a flying machine with obsidian blocks and slime balls. I'm not sure about that, but I feel that I have read that somewhere. In fact, I think I've seen that maybe in a YouTube video even. Heck, maybe even somebody mentioned it to me and I just can't remember. Apprehensive_hat8986. Thank you once again for another great comment. I look forward to seeing another from you soon, I'm sure. Next, I have a comment from a fellow who goes by Censored here because they have an inappropriate name that I won't say on the air, but they say this, quote, I use the weeping version in my enchantment rooms, end quote. And I went ahead and used their comment and I asked for it because I forgot about the weeping obsidian, and I should have included that somehow into this poll. Just maybe, hey, what version do you like more? Or do you like the weeping obsidian? Actually, I'll probably just make another poll out of it because personally, I think that the weeping obsidian is a beautiful block. It looks so mystical with that purple, mysterious plasma-looking liquid that gushes out of the cracks. I just love how it looks personally. And I regret not putting that as an option on this poll. Somehow, I'll probably just do a whole poll over it. So, as I said, I have weeping obsidian interspersed amongst other blocks in my reflection room in my Luminous Palace or Lord's Landing. It's a truly beautiful block. Thank you for that comment, my friend. With that said, folks, that wraps up what I have for poll time today. I hope you enjoyed hearing all that. Next up, we will be going back in time to learn about campfires and our use of them. Bring your flint and steel, and let's go. Thank you, Maestro, for that lovely piano. Actually, that song is called Warm Fireside Acoustic Piano by Maestro, who works for Realm News. Thank you so much. Welcome to the real, my friends. We are back in time, very far back in time, roughly 1 million years ago, according to my source from sciencemuseum.org.uk. They have a fascinating article that was published on October 30th, 2022. Halloween Eve. It is titled Ways of Catching a Spark, a history of fire making methods. They go on to say that it is thanks to our ancient ancestor Homo erectus from southern Africa who discovered how to make fire. I couldn't imagine what that would have felt like to be the first person or group of people on Earth to recreate and harness fire. That would have just been amazing. The article says that our long ago ancestors more than likely were inspired by lightning strikes, natural forest fires, and other natural ways that fire occurs on Earth. I can imagine our pre-fire ancestors occasionally coming across the remnants of a forest fire and them huddling up around the leftover embers to enjoy the heat. Perhaps they threw food on the embers, and that is how they discovered the advantages of cooking meat. I am just speculating. It is quite easy to get wrapped up in your imagination while trying to picture such a scene back in time. Moving on. Another excellent article I came across on SmithsonianMag.com titled The Earliest Example of Hominid Fire was written by Aaron Wayman on April 4th, 2012. The article highlights the oldest known campfire in existence, discovered in the Wonderwork Cave in South Africa. In the 70s and the 90s, archaeologists performed investigations within the Wonderwork Cave. But a more recent archaeological investigation was done in 2004, which discovered the fragments of charred bones and plant ash that insinuated fire had been created at this location. Along with the fiery debris, archaeologists discovered iron stone, which was used to make fire-striking tools. These had heat fractures on them, which showed use of fire. This was all dated back to 1 million years ago, which pushed the previously thought to be earliest fire discovery date back by 500,000 years. Talk about a significant change in our historical timeline when it comes to discovering fire, folks. These scientists use a method called Fourier transform infrared microspectroscopy, which shows how a sample absorbs different wavelengths of infrared light. They use this technique to determine if the molecular material of the bone and plant ash was warped by fire. I thought that was extremely fascinating to learn. It amazes me how far science has taken us. They were able to determine that the contents of the fragmented bone were heated up to 900 degrees Fahrenheit by using grass, leaves, and bushes as fuel for the fire. And because of the excellent condition, the bone fragments and other charred debris found suggests that it was not blown in or washed in from previous floods or rains. They even ruled out spontaneous bat guano combustion, which apparently is a thing. Who would have known? Could you imagine being near a cave that randomly went up in flames or exploded when it ignited from bat feces? Interesting stuff there. I mean, who would have known? A Science.org article titled Artificial Intelligence May Have Unearthed One of the World's Oldest Campfires. As suggested in the title, it is using artificial intelligence to analyze fires in ways that we humans are not able to analyze on our own. It is able to see patterns that we just are not able to. They have had significant breakthroughs with this technology, but from what I have read, this is still a relatively new technique that is still being adopted by scientists in the field. So who knows what they have developed with the rapidly advancing AI we have in 2025. Perhaps we will discover fires being made further back in time with this tech. Some scientists hypothesize that we could have been making fires as back as 2 million years ago, which this would yet again double our historical timeline on fire making. We will see. Time will tell as technology advances. Now, before I go any further, I think it would be a good idea to take a moment to discuss the science behind fire. It's quite simple. To quote sciencemuseum.org.uk, quote, fire is created by increasing the temperature of tinder, which combusts, creates an ember, and then heats up other material called kindling until it starts to burn as a flame, end quote. This also ties in with a term called autoignition, which is the lowest temperature something needs to be in order for it to combust. This only applies to heat causing a flame and not an external source causing a spark or flame. But that quote pretty much sums up how to make a fire right there. The basis of fire building is getting your kindling situated appropriately and your logs nearby and ready to be added at the right time. Just beforehand, have your stuff ready. Be prepared. But first, you need tinder to catch on fire. Then you add that once you get on fire below the kindling, which are usually small sticks, dry pine cones, dry grass, pine needles, amadou, which is dried fungus or otherwise known as fungus leather, and many other varieties of tinder that one can use. Those are just a few examples. After the kindling is on fire, you then add your logs on top of that when appropriate. Now, let's move on to a few methods used to create fire. Way before the Zippo was invented. I want to examine percussion, friction, and compression as 3 general ways to start a fire. Back to the sciencemuseum.com.uk article. Percussion is one of the oldest methods to starting a fire. It's essentially when you strike 2 objects together to cause a spark in order to ignite tinder, such as Flint and Steel in the real world, and in Minecraft is a great example of a percussive fire-starting tool. Other materials that could be struck are quartzite, chert, chalcedony, and fire steel. I urge you all to go check out this article because they have something amazing, just some amazing photos of some ancient fire steels that are very neat to look at. Fire steels were invented in the Middle Ages, like all things. There were elaborate ones and then just simple fire steels. But no matter how simple or complex they became, they are all shaped to be ergonomically held in your hand. So you could correctly strike it with a piece of flint in order to cast off oxidizing metal particles that turn red hot, and when correctly struck into tinder will ignite, resulting in a fire. Some of you may remember Otzi the Iceman. And I said that you would remember him because I made an entire episode over him called Bundles and Otzi the Iceman. Just like that. Not very inventive there with the title, but Bundles and Otzi the Iceman. Type that into the search bar and it'll pop right up, I guarantee you. Some of the fire starting equipment that I mentioned in that episode that Otzi was carrying on him are these I'm listing off. Tinder fungus, which this was specifically utilized for starting fires. Remember the amadou I just mentioned? Well, that's what this was. Its natural properties make it highly effective as a fire-starting material. Otzi also had a flint flake, probably for striking a fire. Now, he also had a birch bark container, or I should say containers. I think he had 2 of them. Though primarily crafted to carry items, these containers were likely used to carry embers for fire, aiding in maintaining and transporting fire. Next and last, he had a belt with a pouch or a bundle made of calf skin. This bundle contained various small tools and materials. This is the oldest bundle on earth, my friends, and I put that in here because he used it to carry stuff in it that he used to light fires. I urge you all to go listen to that episode over the bundle and the natural mummy, Otzi the Iceman. It was a fun episode. Super interesting stuff there, folks. Go check it out. The flint and steel were typically accompanied by something called a tinder box. This was a box designed to keep the tinder dry from the outside elements like snow, rain, wind blowing stuff in, liquid, humidity, all that stuff. It was made to prevent that from coming in. These took the form of boxes, bags, and pouches. Some of these were designed to fit in your pocket and intended to be used on the go. However, other designs were for more domestic purposes, such as lighting a fire in the hearth, lighting candles, and fireplaces in general. Some examples of these portable fire kits are one from the West Andes, where they take 2 halves of a gourd and they made them so they seal back together airtight. They found remnants of an agave plant inside of this gourd jar that was dried up and was intended to be used as tinder. I thought that was just extremely clever, and I love seeing the picture of it. Another example of a pocket fire kit is something called the mekag, or as the British call it, the chukmuk. This originates from Tibet and can be found all around Northern Asia, in China and Japan. And for the super fancy and wealthy, even the upper middle class would have something called a tinder pistol. And it is exactly how it sounds. It is actually an ingenious device that I would not have ever thought would have existed in the 1700s. Today, lighters are the most preferred method of starting a fire, and this is through percussion. I would like to now shift gears over to our next method of fire making: friction. Friction is a much different method to making a fire, but with the same goal in mind as percussion. Instead of cracking two stones together or a piece of flint against a piece of iron, you could twist a stick onto another piece of wood rapidly enough. With enough knowledge and dexterity, you could get them to rub together, causing enough heat to ignite the tinder and start a flame, thus creating fire. The article goes on to state that friction fire starting was developed around the same time as percussion. There are many ways to make a friction fire. The hand fire drill is one example and is one of the most basic and primitive ways to make a fire. It is literally taking two pieces of wood that are of similar hardness and placing one on the ground, which will be the fireboard, and then the other will be the drill. Obviously, the fireboard will be more broad and flat, and the drill will be long and more of a rod or spindle. Tinder is placed where the 2 points meet, and with tough enough hands, you are able to spin the drill fast enough and long enough to cause it to heat up and emit a spark, which ideally will start that tinder on fire, which can then be transferred to your already prepared kindling. You can advance this by adding a bow to the drill. What I mean by that is literally making a bow by using paracord or some sort of sturdy rope and connect it to a stick that is pliable enough to bend it a bit. You will wrap the bow string around the drill. This will add some leverage to the drill by using the bow to horizontally saw it back and forth, thus making the drill spin rapidly and will save exerting your arms so much. Another friction technique is one used by the Samba people in northeastern Tanzania. Quote, a slender twig twisted in the drill pit of a hearth using hands or feet. End quote. Now, starting a fire takes an immense amount of skill, but starting one with your feet is impressive, to say the least. Talk about one heck of a party trick. Please write in and let me know if you can start a fire with your feet. I will make sure to report about that on the show if you can. The Inuit in Port Clarence, Alaska, are another example of people getting creative with how to start a fire. They may not use their feet to start a fire, but they use the other end of their body. They have a fire drill that is held in your teeth. You literally bite this piece of wood that is about as wide as a closed mouth and has a nub in the center of it that sticks out for you to bite onto with your teeth. This helps steady the drill as you rotate the drill with something called a thong. In the picture that I'm looking at, the thong has a handle on each end that is made of walrus ivory. The handles are attached to a type of cord, and a piece of soapstone is placed in the baseboard as a socket for the drill to spin more freely. Ingenious. Now that we know all the new friction techniques to start a fire, let's move on to something called percussion. This is something that I have never heard of before, ever. I did not know that you could compress air enough to start a fire. Maybe you former Boy Scouts out there do know this, but I've never heard of it. Have you ever heard of something called a fire piston or fire syringe? Well, believe it or not, this method is prehistoric. It just baffles my mind. Let's see what I'm talking about. Fire pistons or syringes are they use something called compression. compression of air to be precise, which this method was invented in Southeast Asia and in the Pacific Islands. These pistons can be made of various materials as they have been in the past, such as wood, bamboo, animal horns, antlers, or metal. You first need a hollow tube or cylinder, and then you place tinder in said tube. After loading the cavity with tinder, you then put the airtight piston in the cavity and rapidly plunge it inside. Doing so increases the air pressure, which results in the air heating to the point where it reaches the auto-ignition temperature of the tinder, which sets it on fire. When you pull the piston out, you should have a smoldering ember that can be used to start your fire. I thought that was just incredible to learn. I had never in my life heard of such a method to start a fire. It sounds so advanced, but our prehistorical ancestors invented these. To me, the fire piston seems to be much more practical than friction and percussion. It seems to me that I don't give enough credit to our prehistory ancestors. Sorry. A fascinating fact I discovered from this article is that Rudolf Diesel personally witnessed the Southeast Asian fire piston in action. He then applied the principles behind its fire starting mechanism to an engine he invented and named after himself, the diesel engine. Sound familiar? Fire pistons were patented in France and England in 1807, and they say that they were invented independently from Southeast Asia, meaning that they were not influenced by it or they didn't copy their methods. Or that's what the French and English claim. I would have to say I highly doubt that. I do not see how the two biggest colonizers of the world of the time didn't notice this invention when they were colonizing. It's just a bit hard to believe. I just don't think they want to give credit to somebody else. Anyways, that is all I have on fire pistons for today, and that concludes what I have on compression. I just thought that was extremely interesting, and I hope you all did too. Now let's glance at one very last way of starting a fire. The chemical method is one way I didn't mention, but an example of this would be John Walker's invention called the friction match, invented in 1826. This revolutionized how we make fires and are still widely using them today. I'm sure you've used a match when you've gone on a camping trip. Allow me to quote a piece of the article so you can see for yourself how this falls into the chemical category of fire making. Quote, coated with sulfur and tipped with a mixture of antimony sulfide, chlorate of potash, and gum, it was ignited by being drawn over a strip of sandpaper. End quote. Truly fascinating, if you ask me. Now, that's all I have on real-world fire making today, friends. We are now going to make our journey into the realm and see how to make a campfire and a fire and steel in the overworld. The history of the campfire is quite brief and was inserted into the Minecraft universe not terribly long ago. On September 26, 2018, during the Minecon Earth 2018 livestream, we were introduced to the campfire. This was also the only time that they gave this as an option to vote for a biome to be updated. I thought that was just really cool to learn. In this live stream, they presented something called a biome chooser where you could vote on one out of 3 different biomes: the desert, the savanna, and the taiga. I thought it was really neat that Mojang did this. In the first round of that vote, the desert lost with 15.2% of the votes. I just thought that was interesting to see how poorly received the desert was from the get-go. The savanna ended up losing the second round with 34.7% of the votes, leaving the taiga as the winner with 65.3% of the votes. The taiga brought in several new items that you are familiar with, such as sweet berries. I'm sure you've all pricked yourself with those by accidentally bumping into them, but they are tasty. You can eat them. And we also received foxes and, of course, campfires. I found in the live stream video on YouTube that the campfire was first shown to us exactly at the 52-minute marker. So go check that out. Mini Jeb makes a campfire and then a group of foxes come out and Jeb and Agnes run away. It's a funny video that's worth watching. Just skip to the 52-minute mark and see what I'm talking about. Now let's move forward into the new year to January 9th, 2019, where snapshot 19W028 is introduced. This didn't always show us a campfire, but they made the cartography and lectern functional by making them craftable and gave them the function similar to what we have today. This was all part of the 1.14 Java Edition Village and Pillage update. Now that we have a little background to the campfire, let's now look at how to craft one. Crafting a campfire takes a few ingredients that I'll list out for you. 3 sticks, 1 piece of coal or charcoal, and 3 pieces of wood. It doesn't matter the type. In fact, you can even use stems, which are, for example, mushroom stems or crimson stems from the nether. I wasn't aware of all that. Something else I wasn't aware of is that you can extinguish a campfire with 1 hit of a shovel. I tested that out last night, and I thought that was so cool that worked. 1 hit, out. So efficient. If you choose to break that campfire down when not using Silk Touch, it will not drop as a campfire. It will actually break apart into 2 pieces of charcoal and a stick. So it costs a little bit if you choose to break a campfire apart. You may gain an extra piece of charcoal out of the deal, but you lose 2 sticks and 3 pieces of wood or stems. Also, if you choose to break apart a campfire, it will be good to know that an axe is the fastest tool for that job. If you do not have the resources to craft a campfire or just don't want to, but are near an apprentice fisherman, then you may have a 67% chance on Java of being able to purchase one, meaning a campfire, from him for 2 emeralds, or a 50% chance on Bedrock for the same price. That isn't bad. That's just not a bad price in my opinion. Heck, have you seen how much a store charges for a bundle of 3 little logs? Like around winter? Have you seen that, people? It's ridiculous. Way too much. So this is a good deal. Now that we have a campfire, let's talk about its uses. There are many uses for the campfire according to minecraft.wiki. As I've said, you can use the campfire for cooking food, pacifying bees, as a light source, for a trap, and even for decor. I will have to say that I have not used the campfire enough in my kingdom. I have just recently started to place them in my more luxury builds, such as in Lord's Landing Palace in Limnos and my Castle of Castamere in Arena, France. However, in my personal chambers in those 2 places, palaces, I have put in soul campfires. I just love the blue flames they make. I truly do. Now, one great use of a campfire is for the light level it produces. It will cast out a light level that matches the overworld sun, level 15, the max. You have all heard me say that a few times before on the show. Well, that's the truth. Not only do they produce light, but the fire's warmth will melt nearby snow and ice. In Bedrock, when you place down a campfire, it is automatically on fire, which is pretty convenient if you don't have a Flint and Steel. This makes the campfire a truly early game accessory. This could be your first light source in your first world on your first night if you want to be. You would be able to cook multiple pieces of food on it and save you from crafting a furnace. However, you can't smelt anything on a campfire. As I said, you can put out a campfire with a shovel, but if you want to light it back on fire, then you will need a Flint and Steel or one of these other devices. Fire charges, flaming arrows. I already said fire charges. I don't know why I have that twice on my list here. Double up on fire charges, folks. Blaze fireballs or gas fireballs. Now, in Bedrock Edition, campfires can also be lit using an item enchanted with fire aspect. I have never tried any of this out, but it sounds pretty cool. I'm going to have to go get on my world and test it out sometime. When you are done, you can either use the aforementioned shovel to put it out, or you can use a splash potion water bottle. I thought that was convenient to know. I never thought about just putting a splash water bottle on it, or a shovel, like in real life. Or you could waterlog it by placing a water block above it. Also, rain will not extinguish campfires, but the rain will cause it to make extra smoke and to spark more. So it just smolders more, which that's realistic. I just thought you should all know that, because I could see how someone with a logical mind would think that rain would put out fire, right? You would think so, but not in Minecraft. Rain doesn't even put out torches, which I want to say thank goodness for that. I'd like to now tell you another great use of campfires that I have never tried before. You can use campfires as smoke signals. I thought that was extremely clever of Mojang, their developers, to implement smoke signals into the game. A normal campfire will bellow smoke 10 blocks high into the air, which to me is pretty impressive. But listen to this. If you add a hay bale underneath a campfire, then the smoke will increase to floating up to 24 blocks into the air. That's 14 blocks higher. That's amazing. I kind of want to set up smoke signals in all my towns just so you can see that you're approaching one from a distance. Please let me know if you do this or if you try this out. I would love to hear your opinions on it. While we're on the topic of smoke, I need to mention that the campfire is essential to pacifying bees or making them neutral. So you can use shears to retrieve honeycomb or using a glass bottle to gather honey. All you have to do is place a campfire 2 blocks underneath a beehive. There needs to be at least 1 block airspace between the campfire and the beehive for it to function, though. Once you set that up, you are then able to collect honey as often as they'll fill up the hives. Besides pacifying bees with the campfire smoke, you can actually use this for a trap and do damage on a foe or hostile mob. Any mob, really. Campfires deal a half heart of damage every tick, which that adds up fast if the mob is trapped in a pit and can't get out. It will die. Just as efficient as the campfire is at cooking zombies, spiders, skeletons, creepers, and other mobs that roam the overworld, it is as efficient at cooking different types of food. The campfire has the unique ability to cook 4 items at once without any additional fuel. You can throw on salmon, a pork chop, beef, and a lamb steak all at the same time. They will all cook to perfection within 30 seconds. Campfires are 10 seconds faster than the furnace when cooking 4 items, while they are 10 seconds slower than the smoker when cooking 4 items. Again, the advantage is that there is no fuel required to operate this, which makes it worth its weight in gold, as the saying goes. But as in real life, you actually have to watch your food while it is being cooked on the campfire, because if it's left on after being cooked, it'll just burn. It'll actually burn and disappear just into nothingness. And yeah, that can change though if you place a hopper underneath the campfire and attach that hopper to a chest. All cooked food will automatically be sucked into that hopper underneath it and then placed into that attached chest. So you don't have to worry about just getting burnt and disappearing. I thought it was all extremely convenient, and I am honestly now considering setting up these cookers around my realm. And I love that it can cook a whole range of different foods. Allow me to list them off for you. Raw beef, raw chicken, raw rabbit, raw pork chop, raw mutton, raw cod, raw salmon, potatoes, kelp. Talk about barbecue, folks. All of those I just listed off can be placed and cooked on the campfire. Very convenient. And if I was to guess, that is the primary purpose of the campfire. Cooking food, Heck, I should conduct a poll on why people use the campfire. Well, I did. I also use it as decor because I think it gives a really nice warm appeal. It makes any home cozy and rustic. I would like to now give you a couple of crazy facts about the campfire. You can place one under a note block and it will produce the bass sound. Also, or I should say bass, the bass sound, not bass like the animal or fish. Also, according to minecraft.wiki, they say, quote, an early campfire texture can be seen in the Legacy Console Edition mini games when the player is a quote-unquote camper, end quote. I would like to leave it there with the campfire today. I really enjoyed presenting to you all of its uses. It truly is a versatile block that I didn't give enough credit to. My brother, the Sun King, uses them much more than I do, and I'm starting to think that I should follow suit. Please write in and let me know how you personally use the Campfire and your thoughts on them, or what they could do to improve them, in your opinion. Now, I would like to move on to our last segment of the show, Flint and Steel. I felt it necessary to include this item in this episode over the Campfire. The Flint and Steel is a basic item, but it has a few functions in Minecraft that you may not be aware of if you are a new player. Flint and Steel is probably an item that you've all heard of by now. A Minecraft movie has popularized this item into a meme said by famous comedic actor Jack Black, who portrays Steve in this Action Kids film. Well, Flint and Steel has been around much longer than the movie has, by about 15 years. Flint and Steel made its big debut on January 10th, 2010 in Java Indev 0.31 under the numerical title 201001110. For those of you trying to gauge where this is on the Realm News timeline of events covered, I have never mentioned this part of Minecraft history before. I have gone back to before Minecraft existed, all the way back in 2001 when I reported to you the episode called Legend of the Chambered, a Minecraft origin story, and I have covered the period shortly after the shears were added to Minecraft in the Secret series I produced, starting with Secret Friday number 1 that released on Friday, June 18th, 2010. That is 5 months, 8 days between Flint and Steel released and Secret number 1 came out. I thought that was good to know. Flint and Steel was added along with the bow, the axe, and the pickaxe. Very important items that we still use every day in our personal worlds and on servers. According to minecraft.wiki, the Flint and Steel is, quote, a tool used to create fire or to ignite certain blocks, structures, and mobs, end quote. This can be a very useful device and a destructive one as well. My girlfriend, who is called Gaia Divine in Minecraft, well, the world that she spawned in was pretty much a thick blanket of forest that generates a never-ending wave of hostile mobs. This was not the best place to enter the game, so she decided to burn down and clear a portion of the forest, which she effectively did by taking a flint and steel and setting a bunch of trees ablaze. It looked maniacal, but you have to do what you have to do in order to establish yourself in Minecraft. Now let's talk crafting and use. Let me tell you how to make one of these extremely useful tools. It is straightforward and relatively cheap. All it takes is 1 iron ingot and 1 piece of flint. The iron you can find while mining, and the flint is found in gravel. So break out that shovel and get to, well, shoveling. If you have no desire to craft a flint and steel, then you can find it in a couple locations: nether fortresses and ruined portals. The nether fortress has a 19% chance of producing 1 flint and steel, and the ruined nether portal has a 46.4% chance of producing 1 flint and steel. This is just handy and makes sense to me. I mentioned in the nether portal episode that you should always bring a flint and steel with you into the nether, because if a gas blows up your nether portal or extinguishes the portal, then you are trapped in the nether unless you can get the portal reignited. And I'll just tell you this, I have a couple of flint and steels in my nether, which you can, and I want to move on now, which you can, if a gas hits that portal, I just want to tell you how you can get to your portal reignited if it's out. Well, you can get it back on, let's just say that, turn back on or ignite it again if you get the same gas that put it out. Well, it doesn't have to be the same one, sorry. But if you get a gas to hit it again, it will activate that portal once more. Just thought you should know that in case you're stranded there. But try to bring in some spare flint and steels and leave those in some chests in some nether shelters that you build. And also, while we're on that subject real quick, bring in a carved jack-o'-lantern so you can put down your head while you're in the nether. Don't ever go in there without one. Just don't. Make that a good practice. Anyways, to use a flint and steel, all you have to do is click or tap on what you want to ignite, and it'll ignite. It's great for lighting unlit campfires, candles, TNT, and creepers for force explosions. You can put them in dispensers to dispense fire to relevant blocks and light cakes with candles on them. Also, if you are attached to that specific flint and steel and you happen to have a few other flint and steels lying around that are damaged, well, you can use those to repair your flint and steel that you like. You can either go to the crafting table and combine them together until fully mended. Each time you add the two flint and steels together, it will also add 3 extra durability points. Same goes for the grindstone. You can add tools and weapons in your flint and steel here as well to mend them. And of course on the anvil, where you can also name it if so desired. Also, in case you're wondering, the flint and steel can be enchanted. And let me go ahead and list those off real quick. There's 3 enchantments here. I'll start with the Unbreaking enchantment. This gives it a chance to negate durability consumption. Next, Mending enchantment. This repairs the flint and steel when obtaining experience. And last, Curse of Vanishing enchantment. The flint and steel vanishes on death, which no one wants this enchantment ever for any of their items. Go and enchant those flint and steels, my friends. I just threw those out there so you know that you can enchant them. I didn't know you could until this research. I say go craft one and go play around with it. It is a really fun item, but just be careful that you don't light yourself on fire. Perhaps you should play around with it near a body of water, just in case. That wraps up all I have on campfires and flint and steel this week, folks. Wow, campfires and flint and steel. What a subject with an immense background. I was only able to cover a fraction of what there is to cover on these two objects. In summation, and needless to say, campfires have been extremely important for the evolution and advancement of humans. It allowed us to cook our food, which led to a more beneficial diet. Doing so shrunk our guts and increased our brain size. It produced light, which allowed us for the first time in history to stay up late and tell stories. This led to an increased imagination and enhanced our social structures. Campfires also gave us not only a sense of security, but actually secured us from nocturnal predators. It's no wonder that fire has become essential for our society to thrive and to survive. Scientists have firm proof that we have been creating fires for at least 1 million years. But that doesn't stop some from hypothesizing that we have been lighting fires for twice that amount of time. No matter how long we have been cooking with fire, I appreciate whichever group of ancestors has started this trend. Thank you. And thanks to whoever made fire starters starting easier by inventing the flint and steel fire starter. This tried and true method has been helping human families keep warm for millennia. With that said, my friends, that wraps up this week's Realm News. I wish you all a great rest of your day and happy crafting. The Dark Lord signing out. Hey Realm News fans, it's your host, the Dark Lord. The one who puts the real in Realm and expands your mind one block at a time. I'm here to tell you that your support means everything. Spread the word by telling friends, liking, and commenting on Spotify or Good Pods. Find me on X, Blue Sky, Reddit, or via email at bio.link/Realm News. For more content, join my Patreon at the Copper, Diamond, and VIP tiers for early episodes, bonus content, and newsletters. Find out more at bio.link/Realm News. No pressure though. Just keep listening, liking, and sharing. That's more than enough. Happy crafting, and see you at the next Realm News.